Hi, everybody. This is Cheryl Kleeman coming to you from the Office of Transfer and Student Veteran Success, and I am here today with Dr. Johnny Robinson as part of our OKSTATE Transfer Talks series. Dr. Robinson is our Director of Student Involvement. He has been here at OSU for about, I believe, 4 years. He has a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and a Master of Education and Educational Administration, and a Doctor of Education in Higher Education Administration from the University of North Texas. He's been working in higher education for about 17 years, primarily with Greek and fraternity and sorority life. So he's a fantastic resource for us to learn a little bit more about how transfer students can get involved with Greek life. Thank you for being here, Dr. Robinson. I'm curious, and I'm sure our students are as well, what exactly does it mean to be a Director of Student Involvement?
It's a good question. So my role has changed a little bit since I joined the Cowboy family. I came here as Director of Fraternity and Sorority Affairs, and really focusing on getting students involved with the fraternity and sorority experience. That's majority, like you said, majority where my background comes to working in higher education is working with this population. But as you kind of navigate, working on a college campus, a lot of times they'll ask you to do other things, and this was one of those things that I was asked to take on more of a leadership role. And so I'm currently still doing my job I was hired for back in 2019, working with our fraternity and sorority population, but also I support the staff and work with the team in the Student Government Association, student organizations, the Student Volunteer Center, and the Student Unions Activities Board. So just really working with all those departments to really focus on, getting our students engaged in the activities that are going on campus. And we know that the students that are engaged in the overall campus experience are more likely to be here, persist, and graduate, which is our number one goal.
So as a transfer student, a lot of our students come from previous institutions. A lot of times our transfer students feel like they can't get involved with a lot of things because of various reasons. But why is student involvement so important for our transfer students?
Yeah, I think just, we have data of really all, we have data, both from what the literature says, but also what we know about our OSU students. The literature tells us that the quality and the quantity of the outside the classroom experience has a direct impact on their persistence and their graduation. We want to keep them here at the institution. We want them to persist and graduate, and getting involved in those activities outside the classroom are really going to benefit that. We don't want a student that is cooped up in their residence hall room or living in an off-campus residence. Finding those things that are going to complement what they're learning inside the classroom. Could be an internship. It could be they're getting connected with a student organization within their college. We know that by getting involved in those activities, they're more likely to graduate. Specifically here at OSU, we know students that are involved in 1 to 2 campus activities are more likely, again, to stay here at the institution, persist, and graduate. And we know it also has a direct positive impact on their mental health.
So what you're saying is for not only transfer students, but for all students, the more engaged they are with our campuses, the more likely they are to be able to complete those degrees and move on to achieve the dreams that they've set for themselves. Most
definitely. I speak for myself. I'm a first generation college graduate. That's something that I'm very proud of. And I do know that if it wasn't for those outside the classroom opportunities, the upperclassmen that served as mentors to me, as well as faculty and staff, I'm not sure if I would have been able to persist and graduate. And so I think not only the student success piece, but I think just the support that students have, I think it's extremely important.
That is definitely an experience I can relate to. I'm also a first generation college student, and I did become a transfer student as well. And it was interesting. how I found my mentors and how I found my passion for working within the student affairs realm. Because when I got to my undergraduate, and I think many of our transfer students can experience this, when I got to my undergraduate, I was 26 years old and I was living in the residence halls with 18 and 19-year-olds. It was an experience. And a lot of the things that our students were doing, I didn't feel like were meant for me because I was already past that point in my life. It seemed like everything was geared towards freshman students. And I know the dream for a lot of college students is to get that Greek life experience, that fraternity and sorority experience, because that's, you know, all the movies highlight that experience and the connections you make with that. Is there a way that transfer students, no matter their age or their backgrounds, can be involved with Greek life?
Yeah, I mean, the previous academic year, we had about a little over 300 students, transfer students, involved in our fraternities and sororities, and we're seeing about an increase of anywhere from 40 to 50 students each semester. So we definitely know that our transfer students are getting more involved. You know, I think at times it's, and I think one of the things that we are working on is trying to help all students navigate what that entry point is for a fraternity and sorority experience. We know the 18 to 22-year-old, they're going to sign up, they're going to go through a recruitment type of process that typically happens in the summer, the beginning of school. Many of our groups within the National Pan-Hellenic Council, and this is our, and when I say NPHC, I am referring to our historically African-American fraternities and sororities, as well as our Multicultural Greek Council. Typically, these groups are not taking the first-year student that comes right in. You know, many of them, they expect them to have some type of OSU hours, you know, sometimes at least 12 credit hours. A lot of them may be taking those transfer hours as well. And so they are looking for the student that isn't that first year student. And so I think those are great opportunities. Tonight, our NPHC community is hosting their convocation, which is their info session, so to speak. So any student that plans to join one of those groups has to attend this info session, convocation, and that's at 6 o'clock in the classroom building 313. So if we have students that are interested in that opportunity, definitely seek that out. I would also encourage any student that if they're interested in joining a fraternity or sorority to stop by Student Union 321. Our staff is always willing and able to kind of direct them in the right direction. Many of these groups, we have close to 50 fraternities and sororities here at Oklahoma State, and sometimes it's tough to navigate and narrow it down of what process I want to go through, what group I want to go through, and our staff can help them really navigate that process.
So you talked about the National Hellenic Pan-Hellenic Council, and then there's your standard fraternities and sororities. I don't think a lot of people understand that there are differences into the different types of Greek life. Mm-hmm. And I have heard from some of our students who have been involved with like professional fraternities and sororities. Mm-hmm. Do we have any of those types of organizations on our campus?
Most of the ones that we work with is our social fraternities and sororities. Obviously, if they are getting involved in their student in the various college organizations, each college is going to have a Greek letter type of organization. Could be an honor society, could be a business or fraternity or tied to that academic area. Much different process. Some similarities, a lot of differences with that. I think many of our social fraternities and sororities that we work with really are founded on those values of brotherhood, sisterhood, scholarship, leadership, and philanthropy and community service. You know, I think that's what's distinctive about many of the groups that we work with. You know, a lot of the times they will have, you know, all of our groups are sponsored by a national organization or an international organization, and we're working collaboratively with those headquarters, you know, related to different processes. You know, we've got 4 different councils, our interfraternity council. So I would say these are our traditional fraternities. Many of them have housing over in the Greek neighborhood. Our Panhellenic Council, these are our 13 sororities. All of them have housing in the Greek neighborhood. Their recruitment typically happens the week before school. And as I mentioned, Multicultural Greek Council and then our National Panhellenic Council, or NPHC, are currently going through their recruitment processes and interest as we speak.
So for students who are transfer students who are potentially non-traditionally aged and are looking for that experience living in potentially one of these Greek houses, you know, one of the fears that I hear from our transfer students is that it's going to cost way too much money for them to be involved or to be able to live in one of those houses. But what I'm hearing you say is there's other ways to be involved with those without having that additional cost of living in those houses. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I joined a fraternity at a different college campus where, you know, we didn't have that lived experience of living in the chapter house. I didn't think I was missing out on anything. You know, I still have great relationships with really those individuals that I met through the fraternity process. And so, yes, it is a special experience to live in those facilities. And we have some of the best fraternity and sorority housing accommodations in the country. But, you know, if, you know, like I said, I was first generation college student, much like you. I was working my way through college, paying my dues with the part-time job that I had. And so for some students, I can understand that the cost of living in the house, that just may not be an option. We do have, so of all the organizations that I mentioned, we have 50 fraternities and sororities here on OSU's campus. 28 of them, you know, have a housing facility. So almost, you know, a little more than half have a housing facility and less than half do not. And so it's not going to take away from that experience if you join one of those groups that doesn't have a house. I am also going to drop in the chat one of our documents. You talked about the financial piece, and I always think that's important. I think a student should know what they're getting out of it and how much it's going to cost. And so I'm going to drop this link, and within it, this is our publication that we produce each and every year for prospective students. So it gives a lot of great information about each of the councils that I reference, but also it has the GPA data of our community as well as the average cost. It's not going to be to the penny. It's not going to show every t-shirt that they're going to purchase during the experience, but it's going to give you a good idea of what each organization is going to cost.
Thank you for that. I'll make sure that that's included in the information that gets posted online as well. I also heard you talk about the tenets of the houses and the different types of things that being part of a fraternity or sorority means. You have to do the philanthropic, the service hours. So what are the benefits to being a part of Greek life? How do students, what are these other options that students get involved in that maybe aren't as commonly known? Since, as I'm sure you're aware, when people talk about Greek life, they talk about parties. And it sounds like it's much more than that. Can you talk a little bit more about this other side of Greek life?
Yeah, I tell students all the time that, you know, from my personal experience, every good thing that I have in my life is because of that decision that I made 20 plus years ago to join a fraternity. The relationships that I continue to have to this day. I met my spouse, who's in a sorority, you know, at the same time. The people who stood up next to us at our wedding were fraternity and sorority members. And so I feel like I can never give back as much as I have gained from this experience. When I graduated with my undergraduate, like many students, I was looking for that first job to get my foot in the door. And it was because of a relationship that I had with a fraternity member who was an alumnus who gave me my first job working in education. And then when I left that job and I went back to work for my alma mater, it was because of my involvement that I had on campus is why I got that second job. And so I think the networking possibilities that go along with your fraternity experience are invaluable. I think what I have learned, you know, I was a shy, how, 18-year-old that joined a fraternity, and I didn't know a lot about leadership. And I had individuals that took me under their wing and really mentored me. And a lot of the skills that I have to this day, I learned through that fraternity experience. So I'm always grateful that I made that decision 20 plus years ago to join a fraternity, and I continue to give back to this day because it means so much to me.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. That's very inspiring to hear, because I think a lot of our transfer students are looking for that purpose, that mission while they're going to school, to make them feel like they're giving back in some way. And to hear that they can still do that as part of Greek life, and that Greek life isn't just about the parties, but it's about all of these other ways students can give back to the community, not only the OSU community, but the larger community, and have those networking possibilities, possibly get that first job because of those networking possibilities, is huge. And I think that emphasizes how important involvement is. So outside of Greek life, we have a lot of other opportunities for involvement on our campus. We're going to be talking a little bit later in our OK State transfer talks with some folks about student organizations, but it's not just the student organizations. It's not just fraternity and sorority and Greek life. There's so many other options. Can you highlight some of those other options?
Yeah, I think it's what I talked about I think previously. And we want students to get involved in something that they're passionate about. I think the first place to look is Campus Link. So campuslink.okstate.edu is really where you need to look for those various opportunities. I know Fran's planning on being on here in the future to talk about how to get involved and engage with student organizations. And if we don't have the student organization you're looking for, find 10 of your friends and we'll help you establish that group here at OSU. I think also the work and the collaboration that we have with the various student councils in each of the colleges is extremely important. We've got some great student organizations within the colleges that can really complement whatever it is whatever career field that you're going into. So again, you're learning the knowledge within the classroom. You can apply that to that involvement opportunity. I think is extremely important. And I want to make sure that I plug the Student Volunteer Center. The Student Volunteer Center is a great opportunity. If you have a passion, like we talked about, giving back, connect with our Student Volunteer Center, utilize Give Pulse, which is the database of all of our volunteer opportunities here at OSU. Track those volunteer hours and throughout your college career here at OSU.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. So you've talked a little bit about how one of your passions is leadership. You've talked about these different councils that exist where students can have these leadership opportunities. Transfer students, typically, they're on campus long enough to go to classes, and then they take care of their families, they go to their jobs, they do different things like that. How would you recommend a transfer student go about navigating the balance between all of those things, but still being able to take advantage of those leadership opportunities or just general involvement opportunities?
I think what's great about transfer students, for the most part, they understand about time management skills. I mean, it's not like a first year student where we're trying to help them navigate and balance those things that are going on. But for the most part, I think a transfer student comes in, they've got that experience, they have that knowledge of what they have to do. They may have a job off campus, they may have a family. And so they've got to balance all those various, they understand what it takes to balance all those opportunities. So just like I would tell a first year student, I think take on one or two involvement opportunities as you get here, and try to look at, is it going to fit into your schedule? I would say most of our student organizations meet at various times. So I think there's always, you can always find that one opportunity of like, this is going to fit into my schedule. I'm here during 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. on, pick your day during the week that I can engage with these various opportunities. Our Student Union Activities Board also hosts a number of different activities at various hours. It's not all just late night programming. They're doing things in residence halls, but they're also doing things here on campus during the normal time that students would be here on campus. And so, like I said, I think we have a number of opportunities for students to get engaged in. It's just looking at what time that you can commit and how engaged that you want to be.
Thank you. So one of the other challenges many of our transfer students face is they tend to attend classes in an alternative method, for instance, online. Are there online opportunities for transfer students to be involved with?
There is, and I think Fran's going to be a great resource when she comes on Transfer Talks. I think we have a number of OSU students that are in completely online, but they still, they may be here local. And so I think it's just gauging, what are those opportunities you can come to campus. One example, I would say one of our largest student organizations here at OSU is the Gamers of OSU. And so these are our students that gaming, video games is their passion. And so they do a lot of that online. Now, they may come to campus and utilize the esports arena on the basement of the student union on a regular basis, but some of that is also they're gaming at home together and online. So that's one opportunity I think that students could engage in.
Thank you. I think it's important to understand that we're not just on campus when it comes to involvement. There's so many things that our students can do, so many opportunities to get involved online. And, Dr. Robinson, I know you're available if students have questions about opportunities they could potentially get involved in, but we have our entire Department of Campus Life, which we're going to be hearing from many of those individuals here shortly, of ways to be involved and ways to become a part of the campus and to really integrate yourself into the OSU community. I think that's going to be important as we continue to move forward and build the support structures for our transfer students, like these OK State Transfer Talks. So what if there was one tip, if there was one thing that you could say, hey, transfer student, you should absolutely do this because it's going to give you the most value out of everything that you could potentially do as part of your college career, what would that tip be?
I've been working in this field, like I said, for 17 years. And I think it's like I said before, if I don't know where my life would be if I didn't get engaged in campus life as a student. It really helped me get out of my comfort zone. It helped me learn about the person that I am now. And I think it really just set me on a trajectory for that. Because of getting involved on campus, that has led to mentorships. It's led to I mentor many students, but also as a student myself, I was mentored, and those individuals helped guide me and still do so today, I think, in my career. So I would just tell students to find that one thing that you're passionate about, learn as much as you can, and I think continue to do so while during your time here at OSU, but also beyond, and find ways to give back, like many of us continue to do so today.
Thank you. This has been very insightful, and I think our transfer students are really going to appreciate this in-depth review on not only Greek and fraternity and sorority life, but also just the importance of involvement on campus for our students. I always like to end these interviews with something to make folks smile. So whether that's your favorite thing about OSU, or you have a dad joke, or there's something else you want to share. During the last one, Rob shared that he was a hand model for greeting cards of all things. But is there something, if you were to end this with a smile, what would you say?
Well, I'm not a dad joke, definitely person. Casey Dominic in the Fraternity Sorority Affairs office, he's the king of dad jokes. So if he comes on any of these, definitely hit him up. I think the thing that I love about OSU the most, and I think we definitely, our president continues to, I think, share this, that I think the Cowboy Code and everything that we do is entrenched in our students. I am also always, I think the hard work of our students, and, trying to do as best as they can each day is what we should all strive to do. You know, we should all strive to make ourselves better from a day to day. And so that's what I love about OSU is so much is just the students and you know, that we're giving them the opportunity to really change their trajectory of who they are, who they want to be. And we're here to try to support and make their dreams happen. And so that's what I try to do on a day-to-day basis, is to just support them in everything they do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. That's going to conclude this episode of OK State Transfer Talks. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, go Pokes.